Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on dealing with difficult coworkers. Make sure before we go ahead and get started that you all can hear me. Can you go ahead and raise your hand now if you can hear me? That little hand raise function that you see there on the bar. Okay, I see hands going up. Excellent. So now that I know you can hear me, I will go ahead and continue. My name is Callie DeWald, and I am the Associate Director of Alumni Career Services here at the University of Georgia. And I'm excited to present a great topic today to you all, and also very excited for our speaker, Hallie Crawford. So let me just, before we go ahead and talk to Hallie and get her going, I want to make sure that you all are set. So we've taken care of, the audio and everybody can hear me, so that's wonderful. I also want you all to know that if this is your first time attending one of our webinars, we do typically have about 2 of these every month with some other virtual programming, such as chat-based LinkedIn critiques and resume critiques. So if you are interested in, no matter where you are, kind of getting a virtual critique of your materials or just learning more on the different topics that we do, please feel free to take a look at our website so that you can also see what we're doing and join us. I wanted to also mention that we have a Jobs for Dogs newsletter. So if you're an alum and you're interested in kind of learning a little bit more about what opportunities there are and what events that might be happening in your neighborhood, go ahead and register on Handshake so that you can get the Jobs for Dogs newsletter. If you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to email me or email the Career Center here at career@uga.edu so we can get you connected to the resources that you need. Additionally, I just want you to know that this webinar is being recorded, as I mentioned in the kind of email that went out earlier. So if you missed something today or you want to hear other parts of the webinar, you will be able to do that. The link is going to be emailed sometime this afternoon, and you can all look forward to that in your email later. If you have any questions during today's webinar, we are happy to answer those. Today's webinar is for you, so make sure you ask your questions, especially with such a wonderful speaker like Hallie, and she's got great experience and can give you wonderful answers. So make sure you go ahead and write that in the questions chat box, and I'll be checking those throughout the presentation. I am so happy to introduce our guest speaker today. She's now been doing quite a few webinars for us, so you may recognize her name, Hallie Crawford. Our presenter is a certified career coach, and she is a national career expert based in Atlanta. Her company, HallieCrawford.com, and her team of coaches have helped over thousands of people worldwide identify and transition into their dream careers. Hallie is a regularly featured career expert in the media, including on Forbes.com, The Wall Street Journal, CNN, the AJC, and Fox Business News. For more information about Hallie, you can visit her website at www.HallieCrawford.com and see some of their services, as well as reach out to her. I think she's going to be providing her email here probably throughout the presentation in case there's anything you need to follow up on.
Yep.
So I will go ahead and give it over to Hallie. So take it away.
Wonderful. Thanks for that introduction. And thank you all for your time today. We greatly appreciate it. And I absolutely love what I do. So I'm very excited to present this topic to you today. Dealing with difficult coworkers or employees, the tips that we give will be kind of relevant for both. And we're going to be talking today about specifically how to leverage specific coaching skills in order to more effectively manage professional relationships, especially those ones that can be a little bit more difficult or kind of sticky. So as Callie said, I have been coaching and training based in Atlanta, but I've been doing this for over 18 years. I know I sound like I'm 12. I'm actually 46, just turned 46 a couple weeks ago. And I have an undergraduate degree from Vanderbilt University and a graduate degree, a master's degree from the University of Illinois. And now, because I've been doing this for so long, I have a wonderful team of coaches and resume writers that help us with our coaching services. So why is dealing with and thinking about or considering how to deal with, workplace conflict or difficult coworkers? We want to talk first about why this is important. So if you take a look at these statistics on this first slide, everybody, this is why it's critical to start talking about these issues, because the statistics around workplace conflict are kind of staggering. When I first, was presenting this and looking these up, I was actually kind of surprised myself. So if you take a look here, and then Callie, we'll get to the first poll here in just a second at the end of the slide. Research shows that up to 80% of the difficulties in organizations, they come from strained relationships between employees, not from employees that don't know what they're doing, okay? And the typical manager can spend between 25 to 40% of his or her time dealing with workplace conflicts. So it's a really big deal and has a very big impact on us. And as all of you can attest, assuming that you're here because you've dealt with this before, or are dealing with it now, it causes us a lot of stress and strife. I mean, unfortunately, if we have a difficult relationship at work, it can kind of overshadow everything else about our workplace and our jobs for us. So it's something that we need to deal with head on. So I'm actually curious here, Callie, if we can do this poll, that would be great. How many people have had to deal with either a difficult coworker, a difficult employee, or a tough supervisor? Because by the way, too, in some cases, some of these coaching skills can help you with a difficult boss also. So we just want to kind of get a vibe here, a read on what you all have dealt with in the past before. And Callie, if you could go ahead and read those out to me once it's closed, that would be awesome.
Go ahead and close it. 100% of people said me. That's me. So I think everyone has probably experienced this in some way, shape, or form at work, and I'm really glad that they're on the call today, on the webinar today, as I'm really excited to hear kind of what your tips and strategies are.
Got it. Okay, good. Thank you guys for sharing that. Really appreciate it. And one other thing I wanted to point out too, when you look at the statistic, the second one on the slide here, if it's 1 to 2 days of every work week that a manager is having to deal with this, I mean, think about the lost time that they could be doing other things and they're dealing with this instead. So obviously that's why it's such a big deal. So we understand the importance of this issue because we've been coaching on career issues for over 18 years. We coach clients on these kinds of things all the time. And we've had clients who want to be better managers or just have better relationships with coworkers, all the way to clients who have been, unfortunately, in really toxic work situations because of either communication or harassment issues. The culture of an organization, everybody, it's critically important to your satisfaction at work. And we coach our clients using the coaching skills, okay? The things that I'm going to be sharing with you today, these are things that we share with our clients all the time about how to improve that work situation or the environment as much as possible, because the work environment is so critical to having satisfaction overall in your career path and in your job, okay? And the reason why we've got our client satisfaction rating is 98%. That's what that percentage is there at the bottom. But I wanted to show you all this just to kind of give you an intro here, and then I'll talk about our agenda in our next slide. The reason why work environment is so critical and a make or break for your career is if you look on this slide here, this is our career model that we use with all of our clients. Some of you may have seen this before if you've attended webinars with us before. This is kind of our foundational tool that we use with clients to help them define their career direction, but also to understand if they're in the right career fit and if they need to make a move, okay? And so work environment is one of the pieces, it's there on the left, that interacts with all of the other pieces. You are not going to be fulfilled if your work environment isn't working for you, and vice versa, okay? If you're not leveraging your strengths on a regular basis at your job, you're not going to feel fulfilled. So the work environment, I mean, we've had people come to us, and one woman in particular, just to give you a really quick example, she worked at KPMG in Chicago. And when she first came to us, she said, Hallie, I'm just so miserable at my job that I think I need to go be a chef, like something completely different. And when we went through the career coaching process with her and worked through the model with her, she discovered that she was actually, a lot of her job was the right thing for her and the right fit. It really came down at the end of the day to a very difficult supervisor. She liked her coworkers, she liked her employees that she managed, and she ended up leaving that organization just because of that boss, okay? So just want you to keep in mind that the work environment is a make or break for your career. So if this is something that you can't fix in the long run, even with the tools that we give you, because it's so toxic for whatever reason, you do need to consider whether you need to make a change. And just briefly on the slide here today, as Callie said, you will get a recording of the presentation today or the webinar, but if you would like a copy of the model and the presentation itself, please feel free, just like, as a PowerPoint, please feel free to email us at HallieCrawford@HallieCrawford.com, and we would be happy to send you a copy of that, which would obviously include a copy of the career model, okay? So either one, both, we can send you whatever you need. So here's our agenda, everybody. Here's what we're going to talk about today and cover to give you some basics to get started with in order to manage these difficult relationships. So first of all, very briefly, we're going to talk about what coaching means and how we define it, okay? We're then going to talk about 3 critical communication skills that are based in the coaching model in order to help you communicate more effectively with these difficult coworkers. I'll give you some resources, okay? And then finally, I want you all to walk away with at least one action item, one thing that you will do in the next week to start moving the needle and making these relationships better, okay? There is a handout available too. Callie, I'm not sure if that's uploaded. If it's not, Callie will send that to you as a follow-up in the email as well, so that you have that and you can make some notes after the call, okay? All right, so let's go to agenda item number 1, coaching and how to define it, okay? So basically the way we define coaching from a very kind of simplistic standpoint is coaching is about helping someone learn in order to improve their performance in any given area. Obviously, we're talking about career performance today. Coaching is not about telling people what to do. It's not about issuing instructions, as you see on the slide here. It's much more so about helping people learn about something or figure something out on their own, showing them a different way to do it, giving them feedback or input, explaining something to them a little bit more, and encouraging them. So the thing about coaching, kind of the bottom line, is that it's a little bit less like consulting where you're mostly advising people, and it's more about asking people the right questions. And in order to start to deal more effectively with a difficult person in your workplace, it's really, really helpful to start to leverage coaching skills in order to help you diffuse the situation or the tension that's going on there, and will help you improve your relationship with that person, okay? So this is what we're going to talk about here. And actually, I'm going to pull up all of these just really quickly. So we've got them. So coaching skills, leveraging them in the workplace, they can help you improve communication in the workplace. It helps you develop, and these are the things, by the way, that you want to think about, like what's going wrong with the relationship with this person. Is it about trust? Is it about the tone of your conversation? Whatever it is. So these things that we're talking about on the slide here, guys, this can help you kind of evaluate what's going wrong with the relationship too. So improving communication in the workplace will help you establish greater trust with this person, because that could be what's broken. It could help you develop greater empathy for what's going on with them. Like if there's something going on outside of work that's influencing their behavior that you don't even know about, or something within the job that they're having trouble with that's influencing their behavior. It can create that greater empathy. It can help you develop the right tone. So when you're speaking with them, it comes across in the right way, and vice versa. Develop greater honesty and feedback because of that trust that's being built up. And it can help you develop greater connection with that person in the right way so that the relationship improves. If there's anything else that you all feel could be improved in order to make these relationships better, please feel free to, share these in the chat box if there's anything else you can think of. So these are some of our foundational skills for coaching on the next slide here. here that we want to be talking about today. So we're going to be talking about the first three that are bolded here in the bulleted list on the slide. We're going to talk about designing the relationship, active and effective listening, curiosity and leveraging that to improve things, and we'll touch on at the very end a little bit of intuition and a little bit of self-management. So these things will help you deal with and help diffuse the situation with your difficult coworkers, employees, or supervisor. So let's move to the first one. We're going to talk about designing the relationship, and these are three critical skills that are foundational, I should say, for coaching that will help you enormously improve the communication that you have with other people at your workplace. We're going to talk first about designing the relationship. So let's look at that one at the beginning here, okay? And I'll define for you on this next slide what I mean or what we mean by designing the relationship, okay? So here's the deal. When you are working with anyone, whether it's someone who is a difficult coworker or not, it is very effective at the very beginning, ideally, to set an agreement or kind of an arrangement of how you can work together effectively. So if you haven't done that, let's say this difficult coworker has been around for a while and you weren't able to do this at the beginning with them, that's fine. You can backtrack with it and kind of hit pause on the relationship and say, I think we need to, come to some agreements about or have some guidelines about how we work together. And here are some suggestions and ideas on how to do that, okay? So some of the agreements to work together more effectively would be for when you go to talk with them about something, ask them their opinion first, instead of just telling them how you feel or what you think should be done. Instead of just spitting all over them in some way, shape, or form, or, like just blurting out the information, ask them what their opinion is. We all know that if you allow someone to vent first, a lot of times that's going to help diffuse the situation. So when you go into like a discussion with them or a meeting or whatever it is, ask them some questions first to kind of get out, let them air out what's going on. You can also establish guidelines for yourselves for communication. How do you communicate most effectively? If you guys are emailing too much and it's not working and it's causing this tension, do you need to agree that we need to meet once a week in person? How do we handle tasks effectively? How often do we want to meet and how do we want to handle those meetings? Set boundaries for yourselves about what you want to communicate about and what you shouldn't be communicating about. What's relevant and what's not relevant. What's okay with you to be discussing versus not. And make an agreement at the end here on the slide, make an agreement for how you guys will handle conflict, disagreements, or provide feedback to each other. So if you can do this and have a discussion about how can we design or redesign our relationship so that we can be more effective, these are some of the things that you want to consider. And I highly recommend having an open, direct conversation about this. By the way, as we look at this next slide here under designing the relationship, if any of you feel like, gosh, this would be really tense and it wouldn't go that well, if you feel like you need to have someone like your boss or someone from HR involved with this conversation, that's okay. That can be part of the deal. But I encourage you to try to start opening the lines of communication right away so that things don't fester even more. These are the things that you can work through in terms of how to design your relationship. What are your objectives for you all working together? What do you guys need to accomplish? And what are the tasks you need to perform? What roles should you all play based on your strengths? So I should do this, this, and this, and what do you feel you should do based on your strengths? Adjust your roles and the roles that you've been playing on the project that you're working on, for example, to make it more effective and play to your strengths. Talk about the challenges that you've encountered so far and may encounter in the future. How can you more effectively handle those things? Ask them this question. Keep in mind that when you ask them, how can we improve this? Inherently, it assumes that you can, everyone. There's not a yes or no, we can't work it out. It assumes that you can. So asking a question that begins with like, how can we do something about this, assumes the positive, which really sets the right tone for things. You then want to talk about milestones, the things that you need to kind of check in on. How will we know that we're being more successful together and succeeding in this project? And Callie, if you want to get the second poll started, that would be great, about if anyone has designed this kind of relationship before. Then you guys want to talk about ground rules, whether it's for meetings or communication or providing feedback to each other. Like, I do better if you provide feedback to me in person and you help me come up with a solution versus just giving me the feedback and that's it. Okay, so these give you some ideas, everyone, of the things that you can cover in order to design or redesign the relationship with that person. And what we want to know now in the second poll is, I'm just curious how many people have developed this kind of checklist or guideline for a team, because you can do this for a team, by the way, everybody, or just a one-on-one professional relationship. And
Yeah,
Kelly, yeah.
now we've got our results in, Hallie, and it says, and so 45% of people said that they have done something like this, and 55% have not done this.
Okay, got it. That's actually a really good number. I'm glad that enough of you have, almost half of you have done this before. That's fantastic. So please know as we continue through the slides, if you've done this before, there may be some things you want to add to the list. And if you have not, know that because there's a chunk of people on the call that have done this before, it can be successful. It's worth trying, okay? So in terms of, we're still on skill number 1, designing the relationship. I want you to take a look at this slide next here, please. This is the 4 needs of followers. It's a model from the Strengths Finder from the Gallup organization, okay, in one of their strengths assessment books. And this talks about the 4 needs of followers. And the reason why I bring this up is because this could give you clues to what is going on with the other person and what may be going on with you as well that can help you guys address what's going on or what's going wrong in the relationship. So basically, this is the 4 needs of followers, but the way that you can think about this, everyone, in terms of followers, think of it as employees in an organization in any way, shape, or form. So we all need to have these needs met in or within our jobs and within our organization in order to feel okay. We need to have a sense of trust in the people that we work with and in leadership. We need to have a sense of stability, that things aren't just going to go south and we won't know about it, and that our jobs are stable. We want to have at least a certain level of compassion, that our coworkers care about us at least a little bit, even if we're not their best friend and we don't want to be friends with people at work. Some people feel that way and that's okay. We need to have at least some sense of like caring and empathy to a certain extent. And finally, we all want to have a sense or a level of hope in what we do. Hope in, faith in our leadership, that, we're doing something good, that we're having a sense of accomplishment, hope within the organization, however you would define that. So this is something that you could take a look at and possibly even share with the person that you're having struggles with to find out what may be missing within your relationship or within themselves from the organization that could be causing that sense of insecurity or strife, okay? Because I have found, I just shared this with one of my newer clients who's worked at Cerner and healthcare software implementation for years and years, like 20 years. And she just loved this. And she has been sharing it with all of her staff and coworkers, and they're just eating it up. It's very basic in terms of what it's showing you. But when you go deep with this and really think about how important this is to everybody and how you communicate this within an organization, it's a really big deal and can have a huge impact. So consider this to help kind of assess what may be going on. And here's the deal and why designing the relationship is so important as our first skill, because this improved communication that you have, it will empower each person to take more responsibility for what they're doing in terms of not just their tasks, but how they're communicating with you and vice versa. It helps establish clear boundaries for a safer space for you all to work together. And by the way, this last one here on the slide is kind of a tip. You want to periodically update it as your needs and situations can change. So just make sure that it's not something that's stagnant that you do 1 year and then you don't look at it ever again. Check in on it every 6 months in order to make updates if needed, okay? So in terms of our 3 critical coaching skills, let's move to our second critical coaching skill, and that is active listening, okay? So we're going to talk about that one for the next few slides here. So you all have probably heard this kind of tagline, if you will, active listening. Okay, it's really important. So here's the deal, and I love this picture on the slide. I have an 11-year-old son, and this just reminds me of him being goofy. Everything in the workplace involves communication, guys. Obviously, it's, the linchpin of everything else. When you haven't communicated effectively or someone else hasn't, it can cause or wreak such havoc, right? So it's very important to improve your communication as well. And obviously, two-way communication is critical to an effective relationship because it can impact efficiency and effectiveness, okay? And not everyone naturally knows how to listen really well. A lot of people think they do, and I thought I did when I first started my coaching courses and certification. And then I realized as I learned more about it, I wasn't as good of a listener as I thought. So there are 3 levels of listening that we're going to talk about today, okay? And the first 2 are going to be on here. So let me just pull these up here for a second. So the first 2 levels of listening are level 1, internal listening, and level 2 is focused listening. Oops, and let me just pull that up. There we go. Okay, so level 1 listening is, we all do all of these, okay? Level 1 listening is listening to your own inner voice, like your opinion about something, your judgment. I need to get something to eat, I'm hungry, whatever it is. So there are some examples on the slide here. It could be, I'm hungry, that sounds really hard. Or it could be that you're thinking about what to say next. How many people do that? I'm raising my hand. I do that all the time. So level 1 listening is internal listening to what's going on, your own inner dialogue. Level 2 listening is focused listening. It's focused on the other person. It's listening to each word that they're saying and being very focused and conscious of that. But it's also, everyone, it's listening to their nonverbal communication and the nuances. So assuming that you're in person with them, you're seeing what their hands are doing or their body language. And if not, if you're over the phone with them, because you can do this on the phone, you can hear like the tone of their voice and the places that they pause and if they're hesitant about something. Okay, so we want you to reduce the level of the level 1 listening, okay? And we want you to start to work on building the muscle of level 2 listening, focus listening. And then we also want you to start working on what we call level 3 listening and global listening, okay? And we're going to do this poll here in just a second, Callie, if you want to start to pull that up, if you believe you have effective listening skills based on what we're telling you today, okay? So here's the deal. Level 3 listening, everybody, is just as critical as level 2. It's global listening. It's listening and kind of getting a sense of what the energy is between the two of you. Like, what's the tone and the energy? How is it shifting or changing? What's the mood or tone of the conversation? You need to pay attention to that as well. And one of the ways to do that is to kind of just feel how you feel in your body, because there are going to be things that people don't tell us and that they're not direct about that we can kind of sense in the room. You all know how to do this and how this feels, okay? So one of the things that's really important in terms of being more effective as a communicator is being able to do this global listening and also kind of calling out what's going on. So Callie, if you will pull up this third poll, that would be great if we've got it.
Yeah, we don't have it, but what we can do, I would just love to see the hands. If you guys could raise your hand if this is you.
That's great.
To have effective listening skills.
Yeah. And if we didn't send it to you, Callie, it's probably on our end. Apologies.
Oh, no, no problem.
We try to be good.
It looks like we have only about 10% of people are raising their hands. So I don't know if people are thinking that okay, we're getting more. People are listening. Good, yeah. So it looks like we have about probably 30 or 40% of our audience now who are raising their hands.
Good. Okay, good. Yeah. So that's a really good start. And I want you all to take on this level 3, like as an action item, to really start paying attention to the global listening in your workplace in the next couple weeks here, because that can help you a lot with other things that may be going on that you may have missed. So that's awesome. I'm glad we've got that good number. So the ways to do this, to start working on that global listening, is set the tone of the conversation before you start. So this is actually about not just, paying attention to it, but I should say as well, influencing it, okay? So if you're about to go into a conversation with someone that could be touchy and you need to give them some tough feedback or ask them something difficult and you feel like there could be conflict coming up, the way to set the tone of the conversation is to do it before you start. Let them know you need to talk about something touchy and ask their permission. Hey, John, I need to meet with you for a few minutes. Can we meet in my office a little bit later today? Okay, great. And then when you guys sit down in your office, let's say, ask him and say, look, I need to talk to you about something that may be a little bit touchy or may not come across in the way I want it to, or maybe kind of difficult to discuss, but it's something that we really need to get out in the open. Is that okay with you? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say okay, okay? And if they say no, is there another time that we can talk about this? What is a good time? Should we discuss it tomorrow? So if they say no, you can ask for another time, and that's fine. But asking this permission and letting them know what's coming helps them put their guard back down, or doesn't allow them to put it up. Okay, so this is one really critical tool I want you guys to take away from today. Okay, the second thing to do in terms of like noticing the global listening is just being quiet, like slowing yourself down a little bit, and don't talk so quickly. Don't, step over things that you have just said that are important, or that the other person just said that's really important. Don't step over things. Say, well, wait a minute, you just said something about that. I feel like we need to talk about that a little bit more. So what's going on there? Slow yourself down and slow them down if needed. And also consider asking a question rather than giving advice. Okay. One of the things that I will do when I'm in a difficult situation, or even if, I'm more nervous giving a presentation or whatever it is I'll take a deep breath and kind of slow myself down. And that immediately gets me into a better place of being able to kind of feel what's going on around me and get into a more balanced spot in order to deal with something that may be kind of difficult. So this is some advice to help you with this active listening. Another tool or resource is this active empathic listening scale. This is a free tool on the website, or on the web, I should say, on the internet. It's not on our website. Email me at admin@halliecrawford.com if you would like a copy of this tool. This is an active link here, but if for some reason, if you ask for the presentation and you can't get the active link, please feel free to email us for it. Happy to share this with you. This is a really great tool, everybody. It's complimentary. It's only like 10 questions, but it really gets down to the nitty-gritty of how good you are at your listening skills, and helps you identify some areas that you need to improve. So what I would recommend as a homework assignment, as one of them, is to download this worksheet and this scale, identify 2 of your lowest areas, and start to think about how you can improve those. I'm happy to do a strategy session with anyone that needs additional help with this. You can just email us at admin@halliecrawford.com. I'll set up a time to chat with you. You can talk with a friend, a family member, whatever it is, to identify your 2 lowest areas and come up with action steps to start moving that forward. Okay, so this is a really good scale to identify kind of your weak points. The other thing is, another homework assignment you can do is this active listening exercise. And I do this in workshops and live groups, and it's fantastic. It seems like it would be really easy, but when I do this with people and have them do it with each other, they always say it's so incredibly difficult, more so than they thought. Have a close friend or family member, whatever's best for you, tell you about a problem that they are struggling with. And on your end of it, and this can be 5 minutes, it doesn't have to be that long, but on your end, you are only allowed to reflect back what they're saying or paraphrase it as well. You can't ask them any questions. You can't give them any advice. This will really help develop that listening muscle for you too, that is so important. So only reflect back or paraphrase what they're saying, nothing else. We are so attuned as humans, and I was this way too. Before I became a coach, I was so attuned to just wanting to jump in and help someone, save them and fix it. We want to help out, and that's a good thing, right? But a lot of the times it's more appropriate, especially in these kinds of situations, to take a back seat a little bit more, like put that to the side, especially at the beginning of a touchy conversation, and ask questions instead. See what's going on with the other person, and then you can pursue what you need to do next. So let's talk about the third critical coaching skill, and under agenda item number 2, and this is going to be curiosity. So we're going to talk about curiosity as our last coaching skill. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm going to put all of these up on the slide here. Okay, so curiosity, being curious versus judging or getting angry or frustrated with someone, being curious instead can really help you diffuse a difficult situation right out of the box. We talked about this first one already. Ask permission if you have to share something that's difficult. Ask permission beforehand. But the other piece here, in terms of, or as a way to leverage curiosity, is to ask them, and just in general, open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are not yes or no. They're kind of childlike. There's no judgment in them, and it allows the other person to kind of play around with different options, explain something, identify a solution, or just kind of vent if they need to get something off their chest. So here are some examples of open-ended questions at the bottom, and these are more powerful questions that will help you guys move forward into a solution instead of just a yes or no question, okay? So it gives you a lot more options and allows the conversation to be safer as well as more open-ended. So you could ask something like, how can we improve our work relationship? What's the best way to accomplish this goal without conflict? Open-ended questions are things that do not lead to just a yes or no answer, okay? So you want to practice with these in the next week as well. And what's funny is when I have clients practice with this with us, they'll start a question usually, and they'll start to get to the end of it and they're like, oh no, I'm going towards yes or no, and I need to fix my question along the way so that's more open-ended. So this is definitely a skill that's something that people need to develop over time. It's not something that we all do naturally, okay? There are two types of curious or open-ended questions, or powerful questions as we call them. There's information gathering and just simply curious ones. So you can get more information from the other person by using these types. How much time do you need to spend on this? Who can help us with this? An example of a curious question, just kind of open-ended. What will finishing this report, what will that look like for you? And what will that provide you with? Well, the freedom to work on something else, or a sense of accomplishment, or whatever it is, okay? What would working together effectively look like? These are more curious, just kind of very open-ended questions versus information gathering. Okay, just had to drink some water here, guys, because I'm talking a lot. All right, so if any of you feel like you need additional assistance with anything we've talked about today or anything else, we're not closing out yet. We'll get to Q&A in just a few moments here. But I just wanted to offer free career strategy session to get advice on any career goal that you need help with. If you feel like you need a little bit more in-depth advice, I totally get that. A lot of these kinds of things are very situational. Kind of the issues that we're talking about today can get really specific and touchy. And so I'm happy to talk with anyone who feels like, gosh, some of these things would work, but I need additional advice on, this particular piece because my situation is unique. I'm happy to talk with you about that because I totally get that. We're giving kind of broad strokes advice, okay? So the additional critical coaching skills that we talked about at the beginning in the agenda are using your intuition and self-management as well. And we're going to talk about effective communication too here on the next slide just for a moment. So some of the additional coaching skills that you want to be thinking about to start developing is listening a little bit more to your intuition and using it to identify solutions to the conflict that you're having or the issues that you're having, whatever may be going on with the other person, okay? Instead of overanalyzing something, like sit with it a little bit, kind of, as a gut instinct, and sit on it and simmer on it overnight if you need to, just kind of think about and feel out what may be going on. In some cases, journaling, talking to a mentor or a coach can help you, and also help you approach the situation calmly if you give it a little bit of time and try to tap into and empathize with, hey, what may be going on with this other person that I need to understand a little bit more about? That will help you be less frustrated or angry with them if you have some empathy with, hey, something else may be happening for them that's causing them to have a difficult time. The next thing is self-management. We really want to try as hard as possible, at least in that moment, and definitely to not communicate these things. Try not to judge them, try to empathize with them and ask questions instead. We're all judgmental. I totally get that. But as much as you can withhold the judgment in the moment, that's the ideal thing to do. And then in terms of being more effective with your communication with them on a regular basis, you want to make sure that you are assertive with them, yet understanding at the same time. And the formula, by the way, for effective assertive communication, everyone, is on here. The 3 steps to it are showing understanding first, stating the facts versus the emotions about the situation, and then finally coming up with and offering a resolution to the problem, okay? If there's anything else you would add to this list in terms of how you see assertive, effective communication, please feel free to add that to your list. But these are the 3 basics. When we teach communication courses, and teach people about effective, assertive communication. So they're not getting rolled over, but they're not also being a bulldozer. These are the 3 steps that they have to consider. Okay? All right, everybody. So let's get to taking action. And I want you all to right now get out your pen and paper, please, and identify 2 action steps that you will take. And if it's just one, that's okay too. At least let's get one out there. 2 action steps that you will take in the next week, whether it's the empathic listening scale, downloading that and working on it, whether it's the free coaching session that I referenced, or it's a commitment to, okay, I need to have this touchy conversation with one of my coworkers, and I'm going to set up the time to talk with them next week or whatever it is, and I'm going to use the asking permission tool to see how that helps. Go ahead and write down your action items, please. Could be practicing powerful questions. That's an option too. And before we start to get to the Q&A here, everybody, I wanted to kind of close my part of the talking with this quote that I always use in all of my presentations. So you may have seen this before. The greatest risk in life is not taking one. I know some of the things that we're asking you to do today may be pushing you out of your comfort zone. I don't like conflict either. I don't want to have these conversations. I'm just like you. Just because I'm a coach doesn't mean it's any more fun for me. Okay? But the deal is at the end of the day that you have to take that risk in order to improve things. You cannot just stay where you are. You want to be able to say to yourself at the end of your life, like, look, I tried everything that I could do to fix this or whatever it was, versus saying, I just rolled over and didn't do anything about it. Okay? So push yourself outside of your comfort zone, even if it's in baby steps, everybody. I'm not saying you have to go out there and suddenly be this bulldozer. Like all the things we talked about today, we're asking questions, being assertive and addressing things, but doing it in the right way. Okay? So push yourself to take that risk. All right, so let's start to move towards the Q&A portion here. And Callie, if you could, as they come through, if we have questions that come through, if you could just read those out for me, that would be great. I've got information about our coaching services on the slide here in case anyone wants to talk with me about those. Just email me and we'll set up a time to talk. These are some of the testimonials from some of our clients and some of the companies and organizations where our clients have secured positions. So Callie, do we have any questions coming in? I know it usually takes a minute for people to kind of ponder things here.
Sure. We do have one. So it is how I'm trying to work on my listening skills. How long is it going to take me in order to become a better listener? What does that timeline look like?
Great question. So hard to predict, obviously, accurately because everybody's different and depends on where you're starting from. But most coaches, and what I say too, is it usually takes about 90 days to develop really, really well a new habit. Okay. It doesn't have to take that long, but usually to get really good at something and have it become a new habit where it's pretty easy peasy for us, it's usually around 90 days. So hopefully that gives you a sense and isn't depressing. It goes by really quickly, I promise.
Okay, we also have another one here. Can coaching help me with communication skills?
Absolutely. Yep. So we work with our clients all the time on improving communication skills. We've worked with CEO level professionals to help become a better manager and work with their employees, all the way to like, hey, I just want to work with my coworkers a little bit better. So absolutely, we do coach people on communication skills, and specific coaches, that have that specialty, which we do, can help you with that. Absolutely. We do that all the time.
Okay, great. We do have a question. Let me kind of put it together.
Sure.
Here's one that we have. Do you have any, or what goals do you suggest I set for the checklist that you had mentioned earlier?
Goals, to like how to use the checklist effectively. Yeah, okay. So what I would do is download the checklist, and I think the person, wait, Callie, do you have a sense of whether it's the listening scale or the designing the relationship checklist? Can you tell?
I think it's the designing the relationship checklist.
Okay, I'm glad I asked because I was about to answer the other one. So
Okay.
here's the deal. So the designing the relationship checklist. First of all, one of the things I should say is we have a tool for like what we call a team charter. And that has a checklist within it for the things you need to go over. So whomever is asking this question and anyone else who might want that on the call, please don't hesitate to email me at admin@hollycrawford.com and we'll make sure we get you that checklist so that you have something in writing. But to answer it kind of high level right now, is you would go through each of the things that I presented on the slide is basically say, okay, let's talk about how often we need to meet and how we should meet. How should we communicate more effectively? Like, do you prefer email or phone? I think we need to talk about phone for these things, or email is the other thing. So I would develop a checklist, use the one that we email you, or develop one from the slides, at the beginning, and just write each of those topics out and say, hey, Joe or whatever, I would like to talk to you about different ways that we could improve our working relationship. And I have some topics that we could discuss. I'm open to discussing other ones, but I have kind of a basic checklist that I've started about things that we could kind of agree on that I think will help us work together, more smoothly and more effectively. So I would take those out of that slide and create that checklist as one way to do it. That's a great question. And then, and by the way, sorry, you can do this in 2 meetings. It doesn't have to be all perfect at the very beginning because especially if you're, bringing it out to them like right out of the box and they haven't had time to think about it, you could follow up. And I highly recommend this, like follow up with them in the next meeting and say, okay, how do we feel about this? Do we need to make any changes? It typically is a 2 meeting kind of conversation at least. Okay, I'm done.
Oh, that was wonderful. Good. We have another question that's just, if you are in an environment where you would like to maybe talk about something that might be touchy to people in the office or to a particular person, and you ask to, talk about the subject and you get a no from that person, what's the best way to proceed?
Sure. So great question. So I would say and it depends on who you, like if you're their boss and you have to talk to them about this and they don't get a choice, you can say, okay, I understand. I do need to talk with you about this though. It's important and kind of mandatory if you're their boss. When is a good time in the next few days to talk about it? That's one way to approach it. If you're not their boss and it's a coworker and they say no, you could still say a variation of that. It's something that I really need to talk with you about, and I think it's important, and it would help us improve, some of the situations that we're having. So can we talk about it, tomorrow or the next day? And if they still say no, then that's when, if you feel like you need to, because you've got to deal with it in some way, shape, or form, then that's when you would go to either your boss or to HR to decide how to approach it at that point and have them involved. So at least you have options. And then if HR or your boss doesn't, get on board with how to handle it correctly and you can't fix the situation over time, then that may be when you're starting to think, okay, I might need to move on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I'm sure there are folks in our audience who have more specific questions that are about their own situations and kind of want to get a little bit more into the specifics. And again, I'm just going to say, definitely I think to take advantage of your opportunity for that free consultation is going to be really worth their time.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially, and this is kind of what you're saying too, like these situations, they're touchy and they can be very detailed and specific. Like a lot of times I need to hear enough background to then understand, what language to use and how to approach it. So totally, I agree with that. Happy to chat with people.
Well, thank you so much, Hallie. I don't think we have any other questions coming in. It's been wonderful. I learned a lot. I think everybody on the call learned a lot today. We're all going to go out and try to be the most effective communicators.
Woohoo!
And show our leadership skills, but really appreciate you doing this webinar for us today.
Sure.
And with that said, we'll go ahead and call it a day. And for the folks that are looking forward to the recording, again, you'll get that later on this afternoon.
Yes, sounds good. And anyone, please feel free to email me if you'd rather just email about a question. And if I need to chat with you, I'll suggest that. But don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to answer.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day. Bye, Hallie.
Thanks, guys. Bye, everybody.